Hey everybody, I'm Christopher McSweeney.
I'm Tim Shabanowitz.
And we are going to be talking about theme today for lesson 2. And we have a great quote from John Williams, who did all the music for like Star Wars and stuff, like Jurassic Park.
And the Olympic theme. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah. So what does he say about theme?
Yeah. You never write a theme for a movie thinking this will live forever.
Ooh, DIY design. So as we go through making all these designs, we think they're going to last forever, but really we're going to change them.
Yeah.
Right. But starting point, right? So take 30 seconds to a minute, pause this video, and tell us how you feel about this quote. All right, so when we start looking at room design, right, we think of the principles of art and elements of all that. I forget if it's principles or elements. But
elements, and principles. We'll just call it that,
Good, and we want to start seeing our space as more than just a room.
Yeah.
Right? How do we want to kind of look at this?
Yeah, so whenever you're designing anything, you got to make sure that everything is intentional. Everything has to be intentionally placed. You have to think about everything. And I know that may seem kind of overwhelming, but good design is not an accident.
Right, totally.
It has to come from somewhere. So intentionality is everything. That's the first thing right over there. Intentionality is everything. You have to show that. And everything is important. You got to make sure that you're addressing everything.
Where I got really excited about this was I was having a conversation with the head of middle school, Danette Morton, and she said, you are always creating an experience. It is either intentional or unintentional. So if we're doing it anyway, we might as well be intentional and thoughtful of what we're creating. So this is kind of where you and I got together, was when we started thinking about, hey, how does form and function meet pedagogy, right? Pedagogy is how students learn, and how is the space going to facilitate that? And
form and function, we'll talk about this a lot throughout these lessons, but form, Corbusier penned this back in his treatise Towards a New Architecture, but form follows function, right? So the form of a space will follow the function of the space. So you have to identify what you're going to do in the space. Well, yeah, we're all teaching, but are you teaching Spanish? Are you teaching history? Are you doing things, what are the things that you're doing in there? And if you identify those things, then the form will make itself apparent, or form will follow that function.
So in my classroom, I totally could just put all the desks, chairs, and everything facing the front of the room, and I could stand up there, right?
But that would be very boring. You'd be a boring teacher.
It would. And it also, the thing I want in my room, it's a Spanish classroom. I want students talking to each other, not necessarily me, right?
Right. They're talking to each other. It's like a cafe, right?
Yeah. So if everything is just in a row,
that doesn't work. That does not follow the function of the space.
The function of the space would then be me being in charge and maintaining order, rather than allowing students to speak in Spanish to one another.
Exactly.
Awesome. So what we're going to be really digging into is using the space and the room as a tool to kind of bridge this, the connection that we want to go through. So that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Intentionality versus being unintentional, right? Mm-hmm. So everything in our space is important, right? There's no afterthought of where we're going to put stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You got to be
Except
able to
my drink, because I forgot my Starbucks is in here.
Delicious.
Even though we're not sponsored, that would be nice, wouldn't it? And we want to design all of the stuff.
Yeah.
So why?
Why? Because if you didn't, then it becomes an afterthought, and it's not intentional. If it's not if it's not thought of, then it's unintentional. So it's
Right.
kind of like we keep going in circles here, right? But just think about every aspect you can. A designer's mind is always active. You're always thinking of things, and a designer's job is almost never done until it is.
Right. And we really want to create the experience.
Yeah.
So if we don't do any of this, then students or colleagues or anybody who come in our space, it's just not going to create the experience that we want.
Yeah.
There will be an experience, but we're no longer in control,
It's
more
an
or less.
unintentional experience, but you want an intentional experience.
That's
for
right.
sure.
So we've talked about this.
Yep.
The space bridges the connection. The big one here, though, is start with what you have. Some people look at my classroom and they're like, "How did you get here? Oh, I could never do this." I'm like, "It's been 4 years," and I started with just the things in my room and one trip to IKEA for $200, and I bought some lamps. Right?
Yeah, that was it. But and the other thing I would say is even more important here. The room, I think, is the most underutilized tool that a teacher can use, because a teacher will just walk in and just be like, "All right, it's my 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor, and that's it." If you can take as much as you can out of that room and make it your own space, then you have basically enacted that power to create that experience that you want. So utilize that tool.
So there's some music genre called chill hop. I absolutely love listening to it in class with my students because I always wanted my room to be a cafe. Because when I learned Spanish when I was 19, 20 years old, I was traveling Ecuador and I would meet people in cafes. And I was like, man, wouldn't this be cool if classrooms were like this? And then I found this picture of like a little coffee shop, and I fell in love with this picture. You've probably seen this picture 1,000 times.
Yes,
right?
yes. I'd say your room looks kind of, it's got the same vibe going on.
I'm getting there. I need more plants, but you can see all the people in this image are just kind of hanging out, talking to one another, and it's a really pleasing, cozy environment. And that's what I want in my classroom. So there's a QR code. You can actually scan that and listen to the playlist that I always play in my room. But let's kind of take a look at what I started with. And honestly, I walked in and it wasn't even this set up. It was actually in rows.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did was go, okay, I need students to talk to each other, and I want a lot of open space. And so I just put the tables against the wall into little, almost like a booth at a cafe.
Yeah.
Right? And then I thought, this is cool. Where am I going? And so let's come back to theme, because that's where it gets really important to kind of know where you're going. All right. This is a great place to start. So, for instance, the theme of my classroom, let's run through what my room is. And I'll throw up a picture so you guys can see the current setup of my room. You can see there's a whole slew of changes. This is COVID. We don't want to talk about that year. You can see how that worked out.
Yeah, the blue tape on the floor is real good.
Please don't remind me. And then the current picture that you guys have probably already seen. There's a bunch of words written, actually one word written all over the place in my room, which is bienvenidos. Yeah. And that is the theme of my room. So
for those who don't hablo español.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Bienvenidos means welcome or welcoming. Welcome.
Yeah, and technically it's an adjective. And so it's when people walk in, the whole expression would be, you are welcome. All right. So it's not just welcome as like hello, it's you are welcome. It's a state of being. So I use that in my room all the time. So theme, I would write bienvenidos. Going through this is like the most simple way of kind of breaking down what you want your space to kind of at the macro level be like. Is your use case going to be group work or individual?
Or hybrid, could be.
Or hybrid, and you've gone through this because you share the room with me, and you teach architecture.
Yep, and I kind of have to go at the whim of whatever Christopher's doing at first, but it works for me. But I also have to change things for it to work for my classroom, because we do a lot of technical drawing, a lot of individual work that needs a lot of space. And so I'll change it, but then we go right back because it actually flows that way.
And I've noticed that your class over the years now has become super collaborative. In fact, even when they are sketching, they're like talking to each other, like, oh, how did you shade that way and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. Workspace, meaning primarily like in what we're talking about is more like the teacher workspace. Yeah. It can also be student workspace, but let's focus just on whoever's in this.
The client. It's the client. This is mainly for the client. So put yourself in the client's shoes and either ask them what they want or try to imagine what they want if you have to do it that way. And maybe you do a couple of examples of each and see what best is suited for them.
And I always stretch our teachers and I take away their teacher desk, which is not fun. Super popular, but then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I don't need that. But certain people would need a command station with 4 monitors, right? If you're a video editor or something like that. And I said, hey, I'm taking away your desk. You can't do your job anymore.
Yes.
Or are you going to integrate? So in my classroom, when my students are in there or when you're teaching, if you want to sit, you have to integrate with the students and sit with them. So walk through some of these guiding questions. What is the room used for? What aspects of the space do you like or not like? And do you think the space works for what is intended and why? And all of this is under the umbrella of theme.
Yes. And if you take away like a teacher desk, you can kind of think of that right at the bottom. It comes back at you. Constraints are the catalyst for creativity. So you can also think, what if you took away the teacher desk? What would that do? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's too much. Maybe you come on back and say, what if I create something else but take away something else? What are the pros and cons for each? So pros and cons lists, great for this type of trying to figure out what that theme is or saying whether a theme is good or not good.
Totally. One last thing we'll leave you with is sometimes the theme is not totally evident at the beginning. In my experience, it's better to start with the theme. So you build around that, but sometimes the theme also reveals itself as your client grows and as you grow. So for instance, we did a room 233, and we were just talking with the teacher for months and we didn't have a theme. And then as we started building is when we came up with the curiosity over judgment theme, which then as we were doing 3D sketches, we were like 2 months into the class already making 3D models. That's when the theme emerged as we started generating ideas. So, if you can kind of think something that you're passionate about or your client is passionate about, help them see that so that you can then get after it with the theme, at the forefront. So, any last thoughts?
No, I think we got to get to work. I think that's the best thing.
Absolutely. So either work on this right now by yourself or go to the client or work in groups, if you have some groups, and kind of go through where you're at right now and see what happens.
Yeah. We'll see you the next time.
Hope this helps. Good luck.